We're live at the Hive, and this is Queen's Talk. Today we have a special episode. We would like to give a content warning. It is, as you can see in the description, infant and miscarriage loss awareness. So all of the ladies here have experienced that, and they're going to be sharing their stories today. So if this is something that you are, sensitive to, and you don't want to hear these stories, click off now, because there will be tears, I'm sure.
Absolutely. This October is Infant Loss Awareness Month. So I know that ever since we've been doing Queen's Talk, this was on our heart to do in October. We've got multiple ladies here that work at the Hive, and they all have experienced infant loss, but they're all different stories. So we'll just get started, and we're going to start with Haley Puckett and her story.
So my daughter was born August 11th, 2017. She was born with a heart condition called tetralogy of Fallot, and I didn't know about it until I hadn't got to see her and then the doctor came in and told me, and then I got to see her. So my whole knowing her, she's always had that heart condition. And we took her to Cincinnati at like 7 months old. She had her surgery. Everything went fine. The only problem was that she had a blood clot in the back of her leg from her arterial line. And they told us that she'd be in the hospital for at least 2 weeks to recover. Turned out it was only like 4 days. And they said she was good to go home. Her blood clot was good enough that I could give her blood thinners at home, and we would be good to go. So we went home, and about 3 days later, she was waking up fussy in the middle of the night, would not calm down. And my husband came home, and he was like, she needs to go to the emergency room. So I put her in her car seat. I rushed her over to PMC, and they came in, they assessed her. All of her oxygen levels were low. Everything was low. And then we finally got her oxygen levels come back up. She was getting color in her. She was looking more like herself. And the doctor walked out, and he was like, if anything changes, holler at me. And before he even made it out in the hallway, her stats started dropping. It was like 50, 40, 30, and then she flatlined. And I watched them work on her. I watched them do CPR on her. I watched all this. And it was really hard, but I know that she's okay. I know that she's not in any pain anymore. I know that she's good. But I lost her on March 24th, 2018. And what was it, 3 years later? We lost Paisley the same day. And this is my sister Samantha. She lost her daughter 3 years later on the exact same day. They were the same age.
11 days apart.
They were born 11 days apart, 3 years apart.
Wow. So you didn't know about the heart condition while you were pregnant?
No, they wanted to fly me to Cincinnati the day before she was born just for an ultrasound. And I was like, no. I was like, if she's going to be born and I'm this high risk, then there's no point in putting me in a helicopter and flying me, 3 hours away.
Yeah.
I was like, if this is going to happen, I'm just going to let it happen here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, they came in because I hadn't got to see her because I was put to sleep during my surgery, my C-section, because I had preeclampsia, which is another reason why people say, oh, it's okay, you can always have another baby. But I can't get pregnant again. If I got my tubes tied after her, because if I was to get pregnant again, it would kill me.
And, no other child is ever going to replace your child, no matter how many children you have. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is true.
Yeah, definitely.
So say that statement again. I mean, I've never heard somebody say, like, they say, it's okay, you can have another kid.
Well, see, I'm part of an infant loss group on Facebook, which is what helped me get through most of it. Because when I first lost her, you can ask BJ, I didn't get out of my bed for forever. I contemplated on suicide. If it wasn't for Dominic and BJ, I would not be here.
How old was Dominic when this happened?
He was four.
He didn't understand understand, really.
No, and he still asked for her. He still asked for a brother or sister. And I'm just like, you have Reagan.
Yeah.
You have your cousins. It's like, that's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are like, but I asked on the infant loss awareness group about things that people have said to them just for this topic, for this show. And they're like, yeah, people have always told me, you can have another kid, or this one's better off with God. At least they were young. You didn't get a chance to meet them. All the crazy
There's a
stuff like
reason
that.
for everything.
Yeah. And just the stuff that gets under your skin, like, no, because they belong here with me. That's why they were here.
We'll hear Sam's stories next. We are going to continue to cover, we're just, what not to say and to see what they think on how to handle it whenever you do have a loved one go through this. So, all right, Sam.
So my daughter was born, August 22nd, 2020. She was perfectly healthy. She was happy and chunky. There was nothing wrong. And then we were living on a military base in New York, and I went to put her down for a nap. She was fussy. She had colic, but other than that, she was perfectly fine. She was fussy. She didn't really want to lay down, and I laid her down in her bed, and I went downstairs to feed my son. And about 7:20, I go upstairs to put my son to bed, and usually she's awake. We would stay up all night. But I went to go check on her, and somehow she had rolled over. And she was covered up with her head. All I could see was her legs, and I could tell they weren't an okay color. So I rushed downstairs. I started doing CPR on her. I'm on the phone with 911 dispatcher, and that poor lady, I was screaming at her, cussing at her. She wasn't counting fast enough, I didn't think. I did CPR on her for 10-15 minutes, and she was coughing up fluids. She did take one deep breath for me, and I thought her color was coming back. The ambulance and the fire department and the military police got there, and one of the police officers, he had picked me up out of the floor and carried me 2 houses down to his car. I had to wait on my husband's chain of command to help me get somebody to watch my son so we could go to the hospital. We get to the hospital, we're not told anything. We get put into a waiting room, and then 2 doctors come out and they tell me they did everything they could.
They treated her like complete trash.
Then I went and seen my daughter. I wasn't allowed to be alone with her. There was 2 investigators in the room the whole time. I asked for a locket of her hair from her crown, and they looked at me like I was crazy. As soon as I left the hospital, I had to go and talk to investigators until like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I had to go talk to CPS. I wasn't even allowed to grieve because I had people down my throat the whole time.
And she was away from her family. She was all the way in New York. She had nobody.
They took Braxton, didn't they?
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to be around Braxton for. Well, I wasn't allowed to be around him myself until they cleared me. So that was.
And she had to be cleared all the way here in West Virginia. So when she got to come home, she still wasn't allowed to be around him without her
I wasn't allowed to be.
ex-mother-in-law's or supervision.
Me and Anthony could not be around her or around him alone for 4 days.
So you lose your daughter, and then it's just
And
like
then they take my
accusations,
son,
and then they
and-
take your son.
Yeah.
Oh my
That
gosh,
seems
Sam.
inhumane.
It truly does.
I just feel like something like that really wouldn't happen so much around this area. You know, I feel like people would be more understanding. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kept asking me, well, what did you do to her?
Oh my goodness.
Or what did you do wrong? Or
Wow.
I mean, I had to go over my story 6
Yeah.
different times just to make sure nothing changed. And they told me they couldn't tell if she choked or if I smothered her.
Oh my goodness.
And it took forever for them to stop all the investigations. And then the medical examiner called and said that it's still yet undetermined. So that's
Her
what
cause
I
of
get.
death. That's what's on her
I
death
got no
certificate.
answers. All I got was, sorry, we couldn't figure it out.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Their only description was there was fluid in her lungs.
And they said that could have been from CPR. They know nothing.
I'm so sorry, Sam.
They can't tell me anything.
You didn't deserve that, and you know it's not your fault. You're a wonderful mommy,
You are.
and
you are
anybody
the
that
best.
knows you knows that. And I think you need to be reminded that you are a wonderful mommy. You're doing a great job.
I just want to know what I did.
You didn't. It's not your fault,
Yeah.
honey. It's not your fault.
And I
Let's
was
think about it.
terrified to call Haley.
How far apart are your babies between each other?
12?
12
No. Like 13.
September. He was born in September. She was born in August.
Okay.
My brain's working.
Like
Of the following.
Yeah, they're
the
like
following year.
13.
So
months
yeah,
apart.
so you lay down your baby girl to feed your son. It could have happened to anybody. I'm so sorry.
And I feel like that they didn't explain it to you like correctly because, when an infant passes away from SIDS, there normally is not an explanation.
Yeah.
And they made you feel like it was your fault and they
And
wanted
it's
you to give
actually
them the
not.
explanation.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is disgusting.
Yeah.
And that's
It is
awful.
how you were
So
treated.
sorry.
Horrible.
Sam came to work with us
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
And you just show so much strength. And it was shortly after, and you show so much strength, and you're just such a blessing. Both of you are. You really are. We love you both so much, and we are just. It's unreal that the 2 sisters, that's
That is
unreal.
Yeah, I didn't
That
even
they
know.
passed
I
away the
didn't.
same
This is my
day.
first time
Yeah.
knowing this
Yeah,
story, and I didn't.
I remember whenever it happened, and Haley was like, messaged us and was like, we had knew it was Olivia's, because we did flowers or
Yeah,
something
you
that
sent
day,
flowers.
right? And then we got the message that, and we had met Sam before that her daughter had passed away, and that's just unreal.
Yeah,
But-
my other sister FaceTimed me. We were home. I was sitting in BJ's room or his game room, and we were just in there talking. And my other sister FaceTimed me, and I just get on the FaceTime, and her face is all red, and she'd been crying, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "Paisley's gone," and I just lost it.
Yeah. No family should have to go through that.
That's
But I just want you guys to know that we love you, and
And it's not your fault.
no.
yeah. It isn't your fault.
Yeah. I don't know if any Queen customers remember, back last year, we had a fundraiser on our website, and you probably didn't know, who it was, but now, Sam, she works here. That fundraiser was for Sam.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we greatly appreciate everybody who donated to that.
Wow. This is a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought, we've done a lot of, difficult ones, but this one's the hardest.
Yeah.
And our producer for the show is actually Haley's husband, so it's hard for everybody, I think, in this room.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even though, and I'm new to the group. I mean, I've known Jenny and Amy, but I didn't know this story. And another thing, back to when it's people want not to say and that kind of thing. Another thing that you shouldn't say is, I know how you feel, if you have never been through this.
Yeah.
I think you only know if you've experienced.
Well, that's
something
like,
hard.
I was talking to you this morning and you said you were telling your story in the message.
Yeah.
It's two separate things. I couldn't imagine losing a baby that I've carried and I didn't get to meet. That's like
Yeah.
a whole nother level of pain.
See, I think opposite.
Because
I do.
we haven't, I guess,
Yeah. Well,
been through exactly what they have been through.
I know it is.
That's why I
like
think it's
Jenny said,
yeah.
we have different stories, but we all have the same problem.
That's it.
And together, I've never, with all of what I've been through, I haven't ever talked about it. I basically eliminated it from my life, like it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
So I've never faced it. So to me, if I didn't face it, then it wasn't real.
Right. Are you ready to tell your story?
I am. So I had my daughter. I have one living child, and I had her. She was a surprise, of course. I had her when I was 20, and I was in college, and I was not prepared.
When are you?
For this.
Yeah, when
But
are you?
looking back, now that was probably not the best setup, but I'm so glad it happened because I didn't know what was to come for my life. I think a lot of times we plan things, or I do. I'm a planner for my life. And so far, everything has been opposite of planning. So I had my daughter when I was 20, and she was healthy and happy, and everything was good. But I had a terrible pregnancy, more awful than pregnancy normally is. And I didn't know why. I mean, the doctor said everything was good. Everything was good with her. Everything was good with me. She was born at 42 weeks, so that's pretty far. And she was breech, and I did, that happens. So I had a C-section and on with my life. Within the year, I get pregnant again. And I don't know if doctors never thought to tell me or just assumed that I already knew. But I go in for my ultrasound for my second pregnancy, and the lady comes in and she leaves, and she comes in and she leaves, like not normal. And she says, I don't know if you know this, but you have two uteruses. I thought she was going to say two babies. And so I was like, oh my gosh, twins, like my daughter's a year old. And I said, what? My husband was like, this is not even a real thing. What are you talking about? So she was like, no, you have two complete separate uteruses. They're not fused together. They're just separate. And
That's not a very common thing.
it's one in a million. It is one in a million. And so during my pregnancy with my daughter, I discovered that I knew I was Rh negative, so I have a rare blood type, which is not a problem if you're not pregnant. once you get pregnant and that baby carries the father's blood, which if that father is positive, which most people are, then your baby does not compatible with you. So the blood mixes and kind of creates antibodies. Therefore, if you ever get pregnant again and that baby is positive, then your body violently rejects the baby. So I didn't know that. I mean, I knew it was negative, and I had taken shots because there's something called Rogam that you can take during your different trimesters or whatever. I took all of that. So during my second pregnancy, I find out that I have uterus didelphys, which is split anatomy, which makes your pregnancy rate about 40% of having a viable pregnancy. So I just went on with it. And then I always found out, I don't know about you guys, but I always found out really early that I was pregnant. Like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, like really super.
Yeah, I found
early.
out like 5 weeks of both.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel bad when I'm, so I found out really early, and then I started bleeding, and I don't mean a normal, I mean like hemorrhaging type, which happens sometimes with miscarriage. So I thought, okay, it's not. I tried to be words of affirmation for me work. So after this loss, so I lose that pregnancy, and my husband at the time, which was my daughter's dad, my ex-husband, really wanted another baby. So I thought, well, that just happened. That was just a thing. It happens to women. It's okay. And it happened again, and it happened again, and every time it got more violent, and till it was to the point where I was about my 5th miscarriage. I hemorrhaged so much during I was awake, but I passed out, and I remember everything going blurry. I lost my hearing. I lost my sense of, I felt like I was leaving. So they were able to transfer me to the hospital of the two Virginias, because around here they don't really do that kind of high risk stuff. Yeah. So at that time, I'm still pretty positive that I'm going to have a baby at some point in my life. Like, I just thought that miscarriages happen, and they happen to a lot of people. And, I didn't realize that it wasn't going to be a possibility anymore. So I think I had a lot of aggression toward myself, that what kind of wife am I if I can't have children for my husband? He didn't make me feel that way. I was just thinking that because I just feel like, I don't know, traditional, I guess, in a lot of ways. And so I still thought that was just, 5, that's a lot, but I'm okay. I can do it. And I got divorced. I got remarried, and I, of course, got pregnant again. I do not have infertility.
Right.
I just have the inability to carry because of the blood problem. Yeah.
And that blood problem was when you had Selena.
Yes. So you first have to be exposed to the blood.
Okay.
So it's not that her blood's wrong or mine's wrong. It's just they're not compatible.
And then that's what caused
caused it. Yes. And it's so aggressive. I mean, like, it's murder scene aggressive, if that makes sense, with being still, not saying too much,
right.
But it is above the normal amount, to the point where the doctor said to my husband, do you want a wife, or do you want to try to have another? Because you're playing with her life here.
Wow.
She's gonna die. I know there was a few times I've had like an out of body experience where I see like I had no life left because I've lost so much blood
during the miscarriage.
Yes, and I've had to do there's been many times that I've needed, probably about 5 out of the times that I had, a total of 12 times. I've had 13 pregnancies, my daughter being the first. and then 12 losses. And more than half of those, I needed a blood. I mean, it starts losing my blood from my body.
And was that hard because you had like a rare blood?
Yeah, well, because my body it just is like, this is not part of you. This is not what we recognize as you. So we need to, it's just doing what it knows to do. Most miscarriages are chromosome problem. Mine was not. Basically meaning that if there's a problem with the pregnancy or an abnormality, the body seems to get rid of it. My babies are fine. My body just doesn't accept them.
So how long were you able to carry them?
So very like, okay, so around 8 weeks, the pregnancy starts to really take off. And that's when my body's like, no. So I can do, so I'm always early, very early, but, and I never got fixed. I know that that's probably a question like, well, why didn't you get your tubes tied? Because I have uterus didelphys, my anatomy is very different and awkward. So the doctor said, you know, that's really high risk to even have surgery.
Right.
So it was always up to my husband to have that procedure done, you know.
So like when you would get pregnant, would you just be terrified at a certain point?
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I got to the point where I would just be, it was like, instead of, you know, that minute you see those lines, you get like, oh my gosh, you know,
just
and you get
dreaded
that
it.
excited. Around the 5th time, I started losing that and getting like terrified.
Because it was going to
Like, I'm going to die now? Because that's what I started feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I never named any of my babies. I never thought if they were boys or girls. Like, I completely just tried to disconnect. And I have noticed when we're talking about things not to say, I want to apologize to you guys because I become that person that, no, I definitely become that person that was like, it was a blessing, or that was a blessing in disguise, because that was a defense mechanism for me. I had to tell myself that there was a reason that this happened.
Yeah.
I think
Does
we've
that-
all kind of
Does that make
in a
sense?
way.
Like, I was never trying to be rude. So if I've said that to anybody, or if anybody's ever
Ever thought that.
it's
It's
my
hard
way
to
of-
find comforting words though when
It really is.
somebody who's
And
went through it.
honestly, during my losses, I don't think there's anything that somebody could have said to me that would have
That
made
was
me.
going to be my question.
Yeah, that would have
was
made
what
me
I
feel
was gonna
better.
say. I don't think nothing.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, just
because ultimately you come, you know, if you go through all this pain, I think all of us here have kids already, so we know all the pain that you go through.
Yeah.
You have something out of it, it makes it worth it. But when you come home empty-handed, or you go through all that and you don't have the reward,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it makes eventually made me very bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. I was
Yeah.
very bitter. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've had to work on that a lot, but it's made me bitter toward other kids too. I got to the point where
I'm the same way.
yeah, I feel bad, but I didn't even want to see other people's children.
I know, and
Well,
I've
see-
thought about that too with Indy, and you know, you all, because I've been right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been right there where I couldn't see little babies on
Yeah.
Facebook. I couldn't see little baby girls. It just
Yeah.
drove me insane.
Same,
I would
yeah.
be off in a bathroom somewhere bawling. Huge and pregnant with Jensen. I remember we went to the beach and I had a breakdown in the front seat of my husband's car because I saw a woman pushing her stroller with a little newborn baby girl. I could see the bow in her hair, and I just broke down. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's
Yeah.
another thing. Like, having another child doesn't replace the child that you lose.
No, but it does make me, I will find that I notice that I've become kind of a little bit obsessive and overprotective over my daughter that
Oh,
I do
yeah.
have. Just because I feel like I have to, I don't know, more than normal.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel like you need to protect more? Because I feel like I'm a little over, of course she's 14, so she's annoyed by my overprotectiveness.
If Dominic has a little cough, we're automatically putting him in the bed
Yeah.
with us and just like watching
Yeah,
him all night.
you want to, take care of him more.
Yeah.
I find that I'm like that with my daughter because I feel like this is a for sure thing that I
Yeah.
do have. So I feel like I have to take care of it even more because honestly, I don't know what I would do if I,
And you having Selena and having no issues, and then having that's just I've not ever. Have you ever heard a story like that?
Mm-mm.
Typically, it's and you didn't think there was going to be any issues moving forward.
no, I mean, and I was disappointed the first few times,
right?
as
for
anyone
sure.
would be, but I was hopeful.
Right, because you've heard
Yeah,
a
and
lot of-
positive,
yeah.
and then I realized when I was about 28, because I had her when I was 20. When I was about
Right.
28, I was like, okay, I don't think this is gonna be for. I'm just gonna have to accept the fact that
I'm not going to have any more.
I'm not gonna
biological
have any more
children.
kids, and
Yeah.
that's okay. And like I said, the bitterness came. So then I was like, I don't want any more kids. I don't like kids.
Yeah,
Like
you get.
I became
Well, you
very.
want to tell yourself things so you're not.
And I feel
upset.
bad because of that. Because I didn't know if anybody else.
I
felt
feel like we
that.
all.
Oh, yeah.
all have to. I mean, I've never, and I do.
and
I've never personally went through child loss. So I mean, I'm just here to help facilitate. I've never personally went through it. The closest thing I could even compare to is watching her go through it. It's my best friend Amy. I was there, but I forget where I was going with it. I was just going off into a different. But it is. But we're going to share with you guys, hopefully towards the end, some things, because I know we're like saying what not to say, but hopefully just something, I don't know, because I'm over here like, I want to be able to comfort someone, but you don't want to not acknowledge it because there was a life, right?
Yeah.
Well, don't do that because I did that, and
Right. But that was,
it kind of makes you a really bitter person.
Because you're internal.
Yeah, you're like literally pushing it down for years, and don't do that. Talk about it. I never joined a group. I never did
right.
that, and I would suggest doing that because otherwise,
To
it
try to
might
get your
make you-
feelings out.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that helped you?
I do.
Yeah,
I'm in like 6.
yeah.
Does that help you a lot, Sam?
Yeah.
Just the groups.
It's still very
You know,
new
It's
first
it's
thing.
somebody
Yeah.
like to talk to.
And
Yeah.
it helps that you have your sister. Not that I mean, I know it hurts because you
Yeah.
lost a niece and you lost a niece, so that's even a different.
Right.
See, right after I lost Olivia, she had Paisley like not too long after. And then now we lost Paisley. Cassidy gave birth 3 days ago to a little girl.
Oh Lord.
This is
So-
her other sister, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So Cassidy's our other
wow.
sister. So I don't like with other kids. I'm kind of like, I'm not really close to them. I try not to get close to them. But my nieces and my nephews are like my babies.
Absolutely.
Right. Treat 'em
So-
like-
And she's wonderful with my kid.
Absolutely.
Well, I've gotten to where I like, especially if I see a little girl where I had a little, where I
Yeah.
had a daughter, and she's older now. I long for the time that she was your daughter's age.
Yeah.
Like
That's
when I
a
see
precious
her-
age.
Yes, it's so precious, and
I miss
I
that
want
too.
it so badly.
Yeah.
And Reagan's 1 year younger than Olivia was. And then we had Reagan's birthday party here.
I know.
It was
I know.
it was hard. So I ran to the bathroom. I was crying during Reagan's birthday party,
Yeah.
just because it's like, what if?
What if I know?
What
yeah.
if?
Like, is that what you
Yeah,
You
what would
do.
they look like? What would they be
Oh,
into?
I
Would they
can't
be
imagine.
the princess?
Yeah.
Would they like the bows? All
Yeah.
that stuff.
That's really hard.
I remember when Sandy first started with us, I wouldn't bring Reagan to the store because I didn't, I don't know, didn't want to upset her.
Yeah.
And finally, I just like asked her, and she was like, "No, it's fine. You can bring her." But I didn't want to. It would hurt her to see.
That's so
him.
nice
That's
that
such
you
a
even
great thing that you
consider.
even
Yeah.
Yeah.
So considerate.
I
that
think
you
that should be a tip, right? To be aware of things. And,
Yeah.
of what people have.
Yes, and just
Right,
think
right,
about it
yeah.
because I think that in a lot of topics, but I mean, my gosh, to lose a child, I just can't. I legit cannot imagine your pain, and you just need to think before you talk and think before you do.
Yeah,
Right.
and if you know somebody who has had a child pass away and they invite you to their funeral or to their wake, do not bring your infant. Do not bring your children.
Don't bring any child.
No.
please.
Yeah.
Because that is like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's just wrong.
Yeah.
So that's
So that
something a lot of
It
people.
That is
basically
true,
feels like
yeah.
somebody's looking at you and laughing at you.
Nobody's ever
Direct
done that to me, or nobody did that to me. So
well, I didn't have a few, mine were
Right.
different, but I did get to where I didn't want to be around kids because then I was like, well, I would have a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would have a daughter maybe, or I would have a son.
Like-
So I just didn't want to associate
Yeah.
with.
My cousin's wife, they brought their baby to my daughter's funeral. And they were laughing and playing in the back of the funeral home. And at the graveyard, I was burying my daughter, and they were just sitting there laughing and playing with their baby. And I didn't know it until my husband said something when we got home. Or
You were probably
You
a
were
blur,
obviously, yeah.
or you were just somewhere else and didn't see it. Thankfully.
Right.
I can't even imagine thinking about, Laura, how heavily you said that you bled, because if you bled more than a normal miscarriage, I mean it's scary. It's a lot.
It is.
Just for I don't want to say
My-
normal, but
Right. Well, my current husband, my second husband, never has experienced that with me really, because I had a DNC the first 2 or 3 times that I had a miscarriage with him. I had a DNC done. So if you don't know what that is, that's basically when the doctor goes in and cleans you out.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's done in a couple hours. You have to heal from it because it is like surgery, but you don't have that natural birthing thing going on.
and it feels like contractions.
Yes,
too.
but the last time I ended up at CAMC, and they were like, if your body's doing it, we're not going to mess with that. And it was months long. Months.
yeah.
I mean, 3+ months of natural bleeding. And the initial, when the baby comes, is like, it was coming off the bed. It was dripping off the bed. They could not contain it. So that's when he first he's actually got to see it, and was like, he didn't eat for 3 days.
Oh.
He was like, I had told him, like, this is what happens to me, but I don't think you understand that.
yeah.
So that is the prime example for even just like what they're talking about, in somebody's trauma. They can share that with you, but unless you've experienced it, you don't really know. And just be thankful. Just try to be thoughtful of other people.
Don't trivialize
Yeah.
Yeah,
know what
you
it
don't know what exactly.
Yeah.
So even somebody, you're married to, and you tell everything to, and probably tell the same story multiple
Right.
times. They still don't understand
Until
they
they
see it.
experience it. Yeah, that's true.
And looking at it is much different.
Absolutely, because when you're going through it, whether your family is around or not, you are.
It's true.
You don't get to escape. You don't get to leave
No.
and take a break. You have to
so true.
stay there in it the whole time.
I remember not even wanting to be in my own body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that.
Amy, are you ready to share your story?
Whew. Yeah. I contemplated, I was dreading it since I've been thinking about it this evening and stuff. But so a lot of people don't know, the first pregnancy loss that I had was very early on. It's about 7 weeks. My husband and I really wanted a baby. We had really grieved the loss of my stepdad. And I'm like, we should try to have a baby. It had been about 3 years or so that we were married, and I was finally to the point that we were, financially stable. I felt like it was a good time. So it was like a couple months and I was pregnant, right? So I was really excited. I took a test and I'm like, I'm pregnant. And he's looking at me like, are you sure? Because it was kind of like a white line. I'm like, telling you I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. Yes. I was like, so I took another test and it was a darker line. So I went to the doctor that confirmed I was pregnant. Everybody was all excited. I told our close family, I put in a group text, showed them that I was pregnant, which, it's my first pregnancy. I was really excited. Well, I think I was almost 7 weeks or about 7 weeks. I had started to spot, and it was just very mild, but then I started to hurt. So we went to the hospital, and as the hours passed, it just got worse and worse and worse. And I'm telling my husband, I know I'm miscarrying. sitting in the waiting room, like just
You get
tears
that
streaming down my
feeling.
face. And he's like, you don't know that, you don't know that. I was like, I know that. And I know that it has to be this. So I was. And the doctor had come in, a man, and he said, oh, well, yeah, you miscarried. Just, most people at this point don't even know they're pregnant yet. So just cycle again and you can try again. It was very nonchalant, very
Brushed it
like,
off.
and I'm like,
I
try
can
not to
relate with
cry.
that because that's how all my
Yeah, they're just like,
I relate.
that's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And he walks out and I just start crying, and like my husband holds me and we're like crying together, because we wanted a baby so badly.
Mm-hmm.
So then in your head you start thinking, well, can I even carry? Because you think about that, even just the first time, you think, can I carry a baby? Am I going to be able to have a baby? And I wanted to have a baby so badly. So we try to move on from that. I remember coming home after that and I couldn't sleep because I felt sick. Like my heart just ached, and it was just, it wasn't very far along at all, but the thought of that baby, it really hurt me because I just wanted to be a mommy so badly. So, and this is something I don't acknowledge very often because of the other story. And I always felt like that baby was a boy. So I just wonder now if I have another little boy. But it was 3 months later, I was pregnant again. And I texted my husband because he was working out of town and I couldn't wait. And I sent him a picture of the test and I said, it was the day before Valentine's Day that year. It was 2018. I had the first pregnancy loss in October 2017. And it would have been, it was February, the day before Valentine's Day, I found out I was pregnant. So I text him the pregnancy test and I say, Happy Valentine's Day, Daddy. And we're like all excited, we're going to have another baby. And, it went on and I carried her and we found out it was a girl. I just knew I was going to have my rainbow, and I was so excited and I wanted a little girl so badly and I prayed for a little girl. And we went and had like the 4D ultrasound in Beckley, where he tells you the gender. Okay. And I'm like on edge, and I remember looking at my husband, I'm like, what if it's not a girl? I know that's so silly.
That's
exciting. In my heart and soul, she was a girl, and I would refer to her as she, even just like not even meaning to.
Yeah.
But I would be like, she, da, da, da.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, what if it's not a girl?
I can relate. I understand that because you
Yes.
get that feeling.
So I'm telling the guy, the ultrasound tech, I'm like, I say she, and then I was like, oh, I don't even know if she's a girl. He's like, well, keep calling her she because it's a girl. And I was like, ah, bawling. My husband's right there. I was like, aren't you excited? It's a girl. She's beautiful. And she had these big, full lips and chubby cheeks, like even in the ultrasound. And I was just like, I kept telling my husband, I can't believe we're having a little girl. I can't believe we're having a little girl. And I was so over the moon. And, everything was fine. I was swollen and huge after a while. And, we find out, I go to every appointment and everything's fine, but she doesn't turn. So she's been breech for, the entire time. So finally, after so long, I can't remember how far along I was. They were wanting to schedule a C-section because she wouldn't turn. And I tried everything to get this baby to turn. And I was so upset because I did not want a C-section more than anything. So I go in, at this point, I'm going weekly, and let me back up a little bit. So I am 37-ish, almost 38 weeks pregnant, and I start feeling funky, and I'm huge. I even, at 8 months pregnant, I quit my job because I was working full-time in a nursing home, running back and forth, and I worked in Charleston, so I wanted to quit my job and stay home with my baby. So that's what we decided we were going to do. So they throw me a baby shower, and it's really sweet and awesome. And then I go, to wait on my baby. I kind of needed that break because I was swelling so much that I could hardly even put my shoes on or tie my shoes. And I was running around this nursing home all the time. A lot of really sweet people really helped me out during that time. But I just knew I didn't want to travel to Charleston every day and be away from my baby. So I quit my job. Well, it was, I was 30, I would have been right at 38 weeks. I went to an appointment. That morning I woke up just feeling weird, and I was feeling weird for a couple days. And I told my husband, I really don't think I felt her move all night. And he, like he does very often, he is optimistic, and he says, well, I'm sure it's fine. People made me think that it was probably okay because she was, it was 38 weeks in one day. Never forget. So, I have a full-term baby.
Yeah.
So everybody made me think it's okay, but something in me just knew that I tried to shrug it off because I had just been to the doctor a week before and had an ultrasound because I was going weekly. Her heart rate was 144. I'll never forget it. Heart rate was 144 at 37 weeks. So I should then, So I remember I went to the doctor after that ultrasound, and he was like, so when do you want to have her? And I was like, now. Because I was miserable. And he's like, we can't take her now. We have to wait till 39 weeks.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, fine. And I really didn't want a C-section, but I just thought she was stubborn. So we go to this last appointment. Like I said, 38 weeks in one day. We walk in, and the doctor puts the Doppler on my belly to listen to the heartbeat, and I'm big. I look like I'm carrying twins. And he's putting it on different areas of my belly, and there's nothing. And I'm laying on the bed, and my head just pops up, and I could see my husband in the corner, and I was just like terror on my face. And he's like, I'm sure it's okay. So they order a viability scan for them to scan me with an ultrasound. I walk over to the building next door. They're not in a hurry to scan me. I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out. My husband talking to the baby, trying to see if they can get her to move. What was happening, where I hadn't carried a baby for that long, I was having contractions, but they didn't hurt at this point. But I felt like she was pushing her butt out, in my belly. So we're still hopeful at this point, but I know deep down in my heart she's fine. So I'm bawling, and I'm getting angry because they're not hurrying. Finally they get us back there, and I could see in front of me. So this is another thing. They need to watch how they do this. There's a screen in front of my face of a flat line when they put the Doppler on my belly. And here I am, I'm ready to be a new mom. I have all of this set up. Her room's done. I'm ready to bring a healthy baby home just a week after. And she's gone. And I look at the ultrasound text. They're not supposed to tell you anything. And I said, there's no heartbeat, is there? And she just said, she's starting to tear up, and I just lose my mind. And I'm screaming. I'm pretty sure I'm wailing. A sound came out of me that I've never heard before that I could even make. And my husband just holds me, and I'll never forget, he took off his hat and threw it. We're going fully, just crazy, okay? She walks out of the room to give us a minute, and I just remember, so many people say not to question God, but I couldn't help in that moment. I was just screaming, why, Jesus, why? And we come out of the room. The ultrasound tech hugs me, which was really sweet. And I'm like, is this common? Does this usually happen? She shakes her head no, not usually this far along, Well, I have to walk back to the doctor's office and sit in their waiting room, bawling my eyes out, not even wanting to look at anyone. because at this point I do not want to be in my own body. I'm like, I was like beating the inside of my car with my fists.
Yeah.
And I told my husband I can't live without her. I can't live without her because I really couldn't live without her. And we went back to the doctors, and he says, "Okay, well, you know, you can wait a couple days if you need to." I was like, "I can't wait a couple days. What does that even mean?"
Yeah.
And he
No
said,
way.
"Yeah,
No
like
way.
you need to scream or
Are
cry or
you serious?
yeah."
Is that even a real question?
And he said, "You can either have a C-section or you can have, a birth on a C-section." So I go to Raleigh General. I go home and get my stuff. Poor mom was at my house, and the swing was in the living room.
Oh, yeah.
everything, and
Everything's ready.
she
Do you have
throws
the-
the blanket over the swing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know there's a
No
swing
swing.
under it, but she tried to help as much as possible. And I just look over at that swing, and I just remember feeling like I couldn't live. Well, we go, and they induced me and all that, and my best friend's there, other people, my aunt, and they just leave me sitting in the they just leave me sitting in the room. She can attest to this.
I was there. I mean, we were there
It
for
was for,
every
like,
bit of
2 hours.
yeah, 2 hours before they even came in and got her
Got me, like, they give you
to induce you.
Pitocin and stuff, and yeah, it was 2 hours. And Jenny had to go and ask the nurse what was going on.
Yeah, I was at this point we are trying to be hopeful, and we know, just to be completely blunt, no heartbeat, no life. You know that logically, but in this situation, you're thinking God can work miracles.
Yeah, and I
So-
know that he could if he wanted to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're being, everybody's just upset and addled, but we're trying to be positive. And I'm sitting here watching her just fall to pieces, and there's nobody coming. Not to even check in and just get stuff rolling, because we know that takes time.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get mad, but I'm not trying to, show my emotions, because I'm like, but I was like, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And I went and told somebody, and they asked if we were ready, and I'm like, yeah, what are you talking
Oh, is she
about?
ready? She said.
She's just sitting in there. We're having,
Yeah,
but
like
it's-
somebody's ready to give birth.
Yeah,
to
it was yeah, we were sitting there waiting, and then they induced her, but it took
Yeah, so I was in labor for about 20 hours. I had her the next day. I'll never forget. I think you're in the waiting room. But when she came, because they were telling me the whole time, you may never know what happened. And I just couldn't accept that. I was just praying for God to reveal to us what happened to her, because
and everybody's still being hopeful that everything's fine.
Mhm. Right, because they don't hook you up to a monitor. Once they find no heartbeat, they don't ever hook you up again. So you're like, a miracle could happen. You're thinking a miracle could happen. What if
Right,
there
because
is no
you're not
heartbeat?
getting reassured. That,
You're really
you're
not.
getting
You're
that.
not.
Right. Like they kept asking me, well, ask him for a second opinion or ask him to try it again. And I was like, no, because I really think I knew.
Right.
Well, my husband broke down to pieces. Forget that. And like they could hear it out in the hallway, and there's like a
shrilled.
bereavement room.
It was Boo's a quiet man,
Yeah.
and you could hear him
Reserved.
like 3
Reserved.
rooms
Yeah.
over.
And I laid her on my chest because they told me that she would look like she was sleeping. She didn't look like she was sleeping. And as I had her and I couldn't see, because I'm far back. My husband saw all this, so he saw a lot that I didn't see, So I'm sure it was really hard on him. But she said, "Oh, she's wrapped so tight. She's wrapped so tight." So what happened was she was wrapped 4 times in her umbilical cord. It was crisscrossed around her back and twice around her neck. So it was like kind of a long umbilical cord. I believe it's only like 1% wrapped babies or something like actually pass away from a wrapped cord. So that's what happened. And then we had our services, and nobody can ever prepare for something like this. So Jenny like got right on Facebook, and she knows like all kinds of people, and made a GoFundMe. I didn't have time to even worry about it because I was so consumed with grief.
The only thing and I'm not trying to down any type of anything, but I mean, I see her, going through this, and they just hand her a list of funeral homes,
I
and
forgot about
and
that.
I think that we
Here's
all
a list of funeral
right, we
homes.
were just kind of grieving because, like I said, we were all kind of still praying and hoping, and then when Piper was born, that was just devastating. And then, I mean, well, because when I heard Boo cry out like that, I knew that she was, not with. Oh. And then, everybody kind of was just dealing with the grief of the baby, and then they just hand her. That's it.
Yeah.
And then we're all like, and then
And
I
I
watched
wasn't
her.
even from Beckley. They were all from Beckley.
Yeah, I remember
So
Amy.
it wasn't even-
Amy started like panicking because she was just like, I just spent my last bit of money on a baby monitor. I remember you saying that. Yeah, and I was just like, and I texted my husband. I said, how much money do we have? And then he told me I didn't have much, and I was like, I got to figure something out. What do I do? What do I do? And then I went on and made a GoFundMe, and that was just a miracle. And I'm very thankful because but to watch her have to, that's another thing you don't think about. You know what I mean? You don't prepare for that.
No, there's no way to prepare.
You don't, because you're trying to think about you just lost a child, and then now you have, and it's expensive even for an infant.
Right.
It's still expensive.
I think outsiders, people from the outside, don't, where their emotions are not connected to the experience or to the baby, that they're just thinking business. They think of business.
They do.
Yeah.
They're thinking, well, these are
training.
These
I
are,
know.
there needs to be training.
But
If there's not, there needs to be.
Also, there needs to be, I agree, and I got mad for a while, and I started researching things.
Well, and Boo grabbed that paper from him real quick.
Oh,
he
did
saw,
he?
he saw them hand it to me.
Yeah, I
And he
mean,
grabbed it.
that would not, that would not be on my list of to-dos first off.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
For
It was just
somebody to-
like, and I mean, I'm going through in a way, but nothing like her. So I'm like, I need to take on this
She's like
responsibility.
the business side of it.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to get this
It is.
funeral taken care
Yeah.
of.
So it
That's
was-
what I need to do.
I want to say this, that the community
Oh,
swarmed to our rescue.
they did.
They really did. In 2 days, they raised the entire the entire amount that we needed, to the point that I could get the best of the best flowers, the best of the best everything, and I was able to do that because so many people thought of my baby. And I remember telling my husband, like, I didn't even know this many people cared or loved us, And they really did. It was like 200 and some donations that it raised everything that we needed. And then people would bring us groceries, and I mean, it just there were so many blessings within a tragedy, But yeah, it was the worst thing I've ever had to go through. It's just, and it still is. But so
It probably will always be.
yeah, and I lost Piper almost to the day that I miscarried the year before, because she was born on October 9th of 2018. So she would have been 3. So she is the same age as Holly's daughter. So I always feel like I just love Reagan so much, and I just wonder if it's just thinking of my daughter too.
Yeah.
Like she would be this age, and she's so girly.
She's
And I just
girly.
wonder if Piper
I
would be
know.
that way.
Yeah.
I feel like she would be because I'm her mom. I feel like I have a girly girl, and but Jensen saved my life. Like I got pregnant with Jensen 2 months after I lost Piper, and I
bet
went
you
to a
were-
different
were you-
doctor.
Were you terrified?
I was terrified. Yeah,
Yeah.
I broke down a lot. Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah, they're well, I struggle with infertility, and me and Andrew went to that place to get help, and they told me that I was way too fat. I would never have a child, and Andrew flipped out. Like I think he broke a door actually when we were leaving.
Wow.
Wow.
What is And then I went to the next place that you went to, and they were amazing. And a few months later, I got pregnant with Reagan.
Yes, and and I will say the way that and I don't want to. I know I don't want to bash anyone,
Right.
because I did have some. There were some really great nurses that are around our age at Raleigh General.
Absolutely.
But I had a wonderful experience at CAMC too, and of course I had a healthy baby, so it was whole different ball game there.
I remember.
So you're comparing apples to oranges.
Well,
a
you
little bit.
mentioned, when you get to have a baby and take them home, it's a different experience. You get to leave with it. I remember when I don't know if Amy realized this, but the delivery room, I'm almost 100. The room we were in at first was the room that I came in when my twins were born. Did you ever?
I never connected it.
I did. Because I'm just sitting here thinking,
I think you mentioned it.
This is unfair. Amy would be a wonderful mom, and is a wonderful mom. And I remember, her being in that room and her holding my twins, and I held Piper, and I remember holding her, and I was just like looking at her, just like, wake up.
Yeah.
Like, wake up, like, give me an expression. Let me. And I think like that I just was like, Amy held my babies that were making expressions. Like, in my head, I'm like talking to her. It's not fair. Yeah, come on. And it just was an awful experience. And I think just really fast before we move on, Raleigh General, you need cuddle cots.
Yeah.
You need them.
Yes.
I don't know if we need to do you know what that is?
You've told me this story. Yes.
Okay. You need them.
Harmony's Breath is actually doing donations for.
I thought they were doing something like that because when I going through this experience, and I know we're getting a little long, why don't you have a cuddle cot? One cuddle cot. I know they're a little expensive, but what medical equipment is it? Just
It's so important.
it's so important because it
I watched her
slows.
decompose
Yes.
in front of my eyes. Like, I know that
She
it's
did.
morbid, but it's facts. This is
Yes,
life.
facts.
And I watched that baby,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to let her go, but had to. And I want to say this: Tyree's funeral home has always been so special to me. There's a man there, Jonathan is his name, and he was so kind. He had come to get Piper, and he said, just take as much time as you need. He brought a Moses basket instead of like
The
something,
gurney stuff, yeah.
something morbid. It was something really sweet. He waited for me for 4 hours because I couldn't let her go, but eventually I had to. And we carried her out the back. My husband carried her out the back, and they didn't bring what looked like a hearse. They brought like the big SUV that doesn't really look like a hearse. I mean, he did everything that he could
to try
to make it easier on me.
Precious.
I not to be morbid again, but there's a lot of things that happen when there's no life left, and the baby was in an angel gown, which is a gown that they make for babies that pass away out of wedding dresses that are donated, which was so beautiful. Well, it got, it was, I couldn't use it to bury her because it was no longer clean.
And if they had a cuddle cot, what it is it's like a
It would
frozen
preserve-
deal.
yeah.
It preserves that, and that helps the families be able to
Spend the
time they need without the elements of the world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was like, I was kind of blown away that wasn't available. I didn't know what it was at that time, but I started researching it after that because I watched it. It was absolute awful.
That's so true. And then, but Jonathan, because I wanted to bury her in that dress so badly, he went to several different stores looking for a white, little baby gown, and he found one.
So
He found one. Yes, I mean, he broke his back to do whatever he needed to. We had spent time with her with the open casket before everyone had come in because I closed it. I didn't want people to stare at her. And he was in there with us, Jonathan was, with my husband and I. And as we were grieving, I could tell that he was holding back tears.
Oh.
And they were just really, there's just been a lot of people that have blessed us during that time, you know. So, yeah.
Wow. I know we talk about what not to say a lot, but that is definitely a do. Anything that you can do that
Takes off.
that takes the just the consideration.
Yeah.
Be considerate.
Yes.
You know, doing something, bringing that SUV instead of a her. You know, because these things, as mothers, I think we're more sensitive. The fathers are too, but as mothers, we really are sensitive during that time.
Oh my goodness.
And
And
you just pay attention to every detail. Like,
every
even
detail.
if it's
Yeah.
somebody's not trying to be rude or whatever,
Right.
it just still seems like everything. just seems
Everything
rude.
seems rude.
Yeah.
It is true.
You're just
It is
so-
true.
Well, you're mad at the world.
You are
I
mad.
mean,
I
yeah.
think anger is something I still feel.
And you want, you know, you want the whole world to stop. It doesn't.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
And it just seems so cruel. It does.
It's
Like you're
unfair.
like, it's so unfair. It's like there's no words for how it really is.
Everybody else just seems so happy, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable, yeah.
The life's been sucked out of you because your baby is your heart.
Yeah.
You know. But Holly, what about your story?
Mine's not nothing like yours. I mean,
It's all baby.
They're all
Lights.
I struggle with infertility, and it was really hard to have Reagan. A doctor it was really mean. I finally had Reagan. It was a really hard pregnancy. I had preeclampsia. Reagan was born 6 weeks early. She almost died when I was giving birth to her. She's in the NICU for 8 days. She's totally healthy now. She's precious. I love her so much.
Such a
Yeah.
precious.
Like 2.5 years went by. We thought we would try again. You know, after I started the fertility treatments, the last time I got pregnant very quickly, like 2 months.
yeah.
So this time I wasn't getting pregnant. I had to have a DNC, not because I had a miscarriage, but just
But
because
just to try to clean,
I
yeah.
have PCOS and it's just a hot mess in there. And I got pregnant and I was so excited. I FaceTimed Kayla. And we were going on a trip, so we were actually in Tennessee. And I started spotting. And I just knew, because I knew, you just know.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, it's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And I can imagine having more than that. And I've never even told my dad that I was pregnant. He goes, no. But it's hard, even though it was only like 6.5 weeks. Like, you know, I was like, I just wanted to be a mommy. And I'm
Yeah.
afraid to have a sibling.
Yeah.
And you know, those are still, no matter how little, there's still
Yeah.
babies in
There still are.
They're
They still have
Yeah.
a heartbeat at like, what is it, 24 days or something? So, I
And something
mean,
people would say was like, oh, well, you were only 6 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
okay,
like it
you were
didn't-
only 6
like it
weeks.
didn't matter.
yeah. I think I started believing that. Like,
To cope, you know.
yeah. I think I started either believing that because I heard it so much or telling myself that to be able to deal
I
with
told
it.
myself that
Yeah.
to kind of make myself
Yeah.
feel better. Like, oh, well, you know, I wasn't that far along.
And it,
I actually went to work the next day
yeah.
and, like, still miscarried.
We were in Tennessee, and you know, I had my nephew and my niece with me,
Yeah.
and I
gonna be
couldn't,
difficult when you
you
have
know,
children around.
not, and Reagan, of course, and I could not go do things with them. So, you know, Andrew went to the CVS, and he got me basically a diaper because I was
Yeah.
just bleeding so much.
Oh,
and,
yeah. That's it. That I understand.
and he would get up in the middle of the
100%.
night, and we'd have to change the sheets
Oh,
Yeah.
because it was so bad, and he would just wash them at like 2 a.m. for me.
Yeah.
precious.
He's such a good
Yeah.
He
And I
Yes.
think that
That is
my
so
husband, like,
yeah.
saved life during
Oh,
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watching.
Having the best partner to go through that, I would say if you didn't have that support, it would make things
so much worse.
unbearable.
I've always loved Amy's husband. I think he's a great man, but watching how he handled
yeah.
that, wow. I mean,
It made us really a lot closer.
it was
yeah.
just,
And, you know, I felt like his work was so amazing. They let him have 3 weeks off with full pay.
Yeah.
And when he went to go back to work, I was like panicking because I was like, I can't do it
Yeah,
without him. Like,
do it,
I
yeah.
needed him right there with me. And he worked out of town at the time, so he
Yeah.
would only come home on weekends. And it was I mean,
really difficult.
but he saved me. Like anytime, like I would wake up in the middle of the night, like just bawling and like hysterically, and he would just hold me. He would do all the things that a husband should do.
I could only imagine Holly, just because I have had to keep my normal life going while I was going through that.
Yeah.
And I
So-
remember one time I was miscarrying and I was at work and I cut hair, so I was standing, and I luckily knew this client pretty well because she got to know me pretty well.
No.
And I just like it, you know, when your water breaks like that, but blood. So it was just like it was just there. And I got no warning. I don't get sick before. I don't get nothing before. It just happens. And so I'm like literally cutting this lady's hair. And I'm like, so I'm like, I have to go. I'm sorry. I later I didn't tell her then because I'm like, what do you say? So I literally like leave and like there's like blood in my car. Like it
Probably
looks.
hysterical.
Oh well, at this point, this had been my like later on. So I'd had this several times. So I already knew what was going on. When the blood starts, the pain doesn't start. It's until when you start contracting, just normal. I don't know if you've
Even when you're
experienced-
only like 6
Yeah,
weeks,
I
like,
mean
you
the
don't,
pain was
you
so.
still have like,
Yes,
yeah.
the pain was pretty intense for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because my body is so goes hard on it, you know, but I just remember being at the most like the worst places and just random
like doubled over pain.
doubled oh yes, and it's like, and then I remember having Selena. She was probably Reagan's age. She was is she 3 or 4?
Reagan's 3. Yeah.
Okay, I remember having Selena running through the house, and I had a miscarriage, and this was probably like my third one, so I'm still a very optimistic person at this time. I was in my 20s. I was still very, you know, it's going to happen at some point, but I knew what was happening to me. I remember bleeding so much. She was just walking around. Like I go to the bathroom, and she's walking around. She's got there's little 3-year-old blood footprints everywhere.
Oh.
Wow.
Because I mean I couldn't get her. I mean I was literally hemorrhaging, so I was waiting for the ambulance to come, and she's just walking around playing, and there's her little bloody footprints, and my mom gets her and cleans her up. And at that time my mom she lived out of state off and on, but she was in for that time, and she always reminds me of that. And I'm like, I guess when you're going through it, you don't notice a lot of things until after the fact. But, and then Selena has always asked me, like, she always knows when I'm pregnant. I always tell her, I'm always open, even when she was little. But she's like, where are these people at? She never really understood, like, why are you not bringing home a baby?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until she got older, I was like, you know, I have issues and I can't really have kids, and, you know,
She's such a miracle.
she is, and I didn't know it. So, you know, if you're out there and you think, like, if you have a young pregnancy, which I was 20, but if you have a young pregnancy and you're like, oh my gosh, my life, oh my gosh, it could be you don't realize, because you have no idea what's ahead of you. The battle
I
that's
feel
ahead
like
of
I
you.
appreciate Reagan
So much more.
Well, even just like because it was so hard to get pregnant. It took
Yeah.
me over a year
Yeah.
and treatments and this and that. I was in the hospital for
Yeah,
the
I
whole
can't
8
imagine that.
months.
Like, because
Yeah,
I get, you know, I kept getting pregnant, you know, just having crazy things
Everybody
happen.
struggles in different ways.
That's so
I mean,
true.
it's unreal the amount of stories I mean, just talk to a few women and you have different
Yeah.
situations and traumatic situations, and
And it's crazy, like 1 in 4. So 1 in 4 women experience this at some point.
And you know, they say like, don't be mean to people because you don't know what they're going through. Like
That's
you know, like me and Laura, like we were in public suffering.
yes.
Like you know, our body was just going through something crazy.
Yeah.
And we had to like, don't be mean
And
to
it's-
somebody.
and
You don't know what they're going through.
The mental pain, I think, is worse than physical.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you were like went through that excited. I'm pregnant. I'm excited. You know what I mean? And that's such a thing, and it just kind of gets taken from you very quickly.
Yeah,
I'm trying
it
so
does feel stolen.
Get pregnant.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Plus, you
like
know, I'm
it's
still
stolen.
crazy, and I was already like, oh, I can get the sneak peek Tinder reveal.
Oh yeah, I knew you were
I'm
planning
looking-
ahead.
Yeah, I know, like 7
Yeah.
weeks, only got like 3 more days.
And you don't
I've been
really
bored of
know.
this.
Yeah, I used to literally look up the every day, like what
Yes.
happens every day when
Yeah.
you're, and I used to be so like into knowing, and I just got so, there's like literally a rain cloud over it.
I bet.
Oh, I
I
can't
could
even imagine. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine because even like I can't imagine having like you said like multiple miscarriages.
12, right, Laura?
Yeah,
I can't imagine that at all.
yeah.
Well, I don't know where we're at. Where are we at, Robert, time-wise?
I don't have to go feed my
Hour and
baby.
17.
Wow, that's a lot of fun.
Gotta be careful.
My husband's
People
probably
actually
like,
cut us off before long.
Oh,
Sorry.
Mark Zuckerberg's going to get us here in a minute. Trouble, Mark. Oh, yeah, let's give
We did get you guys flowers.
Oh,
you guys are present too. And we love all of you, and we love you. We should have got you some flowers.
Yeah, mommy makes all the dreams come true.
She does. She really does. Well, we appreciate you guys. It took strength to be here and share your stories. We greatly appreciate all of you, and we love you. And if you have experienced infant loss or are experiencing it, you know, we pray for you, and we hope that you can get through it as best as you possibly can.
And just remember, it's not your fault.
Is there anything else, ladies? All right. TheBBoutiques.com and SkinnyWithJenny.com. Thanks.